I'm Lauren.
Welcome to Burp
Welcome to Burp Barf. Welcome to Burp Barf. There will be no take two. Nope. That is the take.
Not.
That's the take we wanted.
We could do. Welcome to the show.
We have a very special guest today.
But first, some housekeeping. I hate to say housekeeping because I feel like there should be a better party term for it. So not like housekeeping, because you remember at summer camp, they'd be like, first some housekeeping.
Yeah.
Stop flushing your tampons down the toilet.
No, it should be welcome to Burf Barf. Here's what kind of beer is in the fridge.
Yeah. So here's the house party. So we have 2 new Patreons, which I'll say again, and every single time, we cherish every one of our Patreons so deeply. And these 2 sets are in particular close to us. So first, we had the dear Timmery from our Athens Fluff Bakery Trail Sister Women. So thank you, Timmery, for becoming a Patreon. Welcome. We know you've been barfing for a while, but thanks for becoming an official barfer.
You rule, and we miss you.
Yes. And the delightful Jagersons of Oregon. So PJ, Tyler,
thank you guys.
Thank you for being our friends and also
for
supporting
being high-level Burf Barf champions.
Yes, absolutely. So welcome to Patreon. Next up, the next flavor of beer in the fridge, we have a special guest today. Woo woo! You want to know something funny? This is in our 2.5, almost 3 years of Burf Barf, you are our 4th guest ever. 4th guest ever. So we have the, I wish I had a really good adjective on the tip of my tongue.
Indomitable.
Indubitable. Laura, and the indubitable Laura Comtois is here. Because today we're going to talk about the lockdown virtual adventure race. Plus, I feel like it's kind of important for all. Burf Barf people to get to see Laura if you're watching the video, because we've mentioned Laura
so many times.
A lot. Yeah, a lot. Laura is our adventure race mentor. She's my physical therapist. She's my husband's ex-coworker.
Friend and mentor.
Yeah, the woman who we want to be married to, our mother, our sister, our girlfriend, Laura Comtois.
That's a hell of an intro.
Really hell of an intro.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. I feel like we should become more practiced at this. I would like you, and I'm totally springing this on you, so if you're stuck at first, I would love for you to name 2, maybe 3, if you've got 3 of them, things in your athletic resume that make you a badass. So a couple of when you think of your resume as an athlete, what are those things that make you feel like,
yeah, let me think about that. I don't feel like any of them. I would say a 36-hour adventure race that made me feel good. And when it's my first 2 years in, that felt good. And that was the first time we qualified for nationals. So I was like, I like that. What else? Oh, I don't know. Nothing is coming to doing Shope with you.
Oh, yeah. Doing Shope, I would put that there. How many years have you done Adventure Race Nationals?
If I were just going off the top of my head, maybe 8 or 9, I think.
That's insane.
That is insane. I think that's amazing. I feel like a hardened athlete from doing nationals 1 year, let alone over a decade of being able to show up and do all of that. Especially since it's worth mentioning you race on a co-ed team, so it's you and your brother husband.
Yes.
But yeah, yeah, thanks for being our mentor. Thanks again for being on the show. Like I said, I'm excited for us to talk about the Lockdown Adventure Race from Rootstock Racing because, as everyone knows, Lauren and my philosophy for this quarantine has been to sign up for every virtual race that there is, and this one was in particular a special setup. So we each did our own individual race attempts, which even if we were doing the same race in the physically same spot, we would have very different stories, but we did the same race in different places at different times, but following the same structure of the adventure race, which was super fun. I think we all ended up having a blast. Lauren, you just said this has been your second, one of your top 2 races of this whole year so far.
Yeah. My first favorite race was our last race in person, which was the 9 Rouge Gain up in Michigan. So this is my first favorite COVID race, which is saying a lot because I've done 13. Yeah. So that's saying a lot. I like the swag. I like the setup. I like the people. I like it, that it pushed me harder than anything else I've done on my own. I like that I really got to a place where I was like, I don't think I could do this anymore. Like, we crave a little bit of that where you're just like, I don't think I want to put my butt on a bike again. I think I want to die.
I was stoked to get that same feeling of I'm like scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like out of all of the things that I did, the thing that most made me feel like this was a good simulation of a in-person adventure race was feeling like a real hot pile of garbage. That's what took me there.
Same. Oh, the elusive hot pile of garbage feeling.
Gotta love it. You can't force yourself into it. You gotta let yourself compost into that. So as an overview, so the Lockdown Virtual Adventure Race was designed to be done wherever you are. I know a few people that went to our particular park or something like that to do their setup. All 3 of us did it essentially from our homes. And the format of the race was 7 individual stages, each one for varying lengths of time, totaling 21 hours cumulatively to be done over the course of 96 hours or 4 days. So what I thought we would do as far as our recap, because you could do the stages in whatever order you wanted to, but I thought for purposes of our recap that we would go stage by stage, starting at 1, working our way down to 7 to just kind of be able to like set the tone between all 3 of us. Because if we try to do it in order, or, we would create an alternate dimension and the time rip would, collapse. So I thought I feel like I would like to start with our total stats if you guys have them. So like, yeah, you got yours on? That's cool. So let's start with total bike miles. Do you guys have your total bike miles? Oh yeah, because we all had to do a submission form. So Laura, how many bike miles did you end up doing over the whole course of lockdown?
I took it pretty easy during lockdown, but mine was 71-ish miles. 71.
That's not
I don't know that I've considered that easy.
I know. No, it was not that high compared to others.
Well, and I didn't have time, and I wish I would have. I wanted to go through and like cherry pick because, of course, as it is with any race, and especially when it's a self-paced one, you'll be like, oh man, I hit it really hard and did 85 miles or whatever, and then you're like, oh, somebody else did 156 bike miles. Okay, all right. So 71 is not slacking. Lauren,
I did.
Bike miles did you do?
94.3 bike miles. It hurt.
Whoa.
So I had boo-boos on my buns, which I made my husband look at. I was like, is it bad?
What color would you akin this to?
Yeah. Is it an open wound? Is it like, what are we dealing with here?
I ended up with 77 bike miles. So, yeah, right in there.
Damn.
Foot miles. Laura, go.
Also really low, 16.8. Not many.
So you need to stop with your classifiers. You're
all right,
selling yourself short. Okay, do that.
I ended up with 23.5 on foot miles.
I ended up with 21 and a half on foot miles.
Whoa.
Well, I keep wanting to share more details, but I really want to do the full recap. Okay. So how many total miles did you end up between everything? If you ended up doing paddling or whatever additional?
Go to Lauren first. I got to do quick math.
Okay. Total mileage covered 117.8 miles.
That's gnarly to say out loud because you can't, I know we're talking about doing a bike and not on foot, but if you did a 100-miler in 21 hours, that would be
elite.
Fucking rad. Yeah, that would be elite. Yeah. I ended up with, and I didn't plan this, 101.99 miles total between all of my things. So, yeah.
Nice. I like that.
Nice. And I was at 91.5.
Hell yeah.
Oh my gosh. Again, I've said this before, but the things that have become like normal or entry level over quarantine is amazing to me. Like people doing the Yeti challenge and doing like the 4 hours every 4 hours for 24 hours or whatever. And it's like everyone and their mom has done it and just kind of been like, yeah, whatever. Like, oh yeah, you want to do a virtual adventure race where you do close to or upwards of 100 miles over the course of 7 different stages over a long weekend, maybe? Like, seems completely normal and accessible. I don't need to train specifically for this thing. Check.
Well, boredom does cause us to bury ourselves in some weird ass nonsense.
And you know what? That was super helpful because I have not been able to run up until recently, was not able to start increasing my run mileage. So it was really nice to just bury myself in something for a while and just be in it for a long time.
I actually want to ask you, because you covered almost as many running miles as I did, and I would say I was in running shape, and you had not been running at all. So, WTF, mate?
I'm gonna say I'm in. Well, so I consider this. So I had done Limitless and done the Double Everest, like hiking and trekking. So I feel like I'm in hike shape, not run shape. And I took your advice, Lauren. So let's think about this. Laura, you did your attempt first, right? Out of all of us?
Yes, May 5th, 14th.
Okay. And then Lauren, you did yours. I actually don't know what date I did mine.
The last week of May.
Oh, and I did it the very last weekend that you could, the last weekend of June.
Sweet.
So I was very grateful that I didn't have to figure out some of the stuff that you guys already figured out, because Lauren, your advice about do not run anything, don't plan on running anything, was incredibly helpful. Like to just set out and instead of being like, oh, I'm going to run and then have to turn it down, it was really nice to just be like, no, that's not this kind of event. That will not serve me well to try and run.
That means your power hiking is bonkers, because I ran those miles. I ran them. My feet were off the ground. So, wow.
Well, thank you.
I still stand by, we haven't said this in a long time, but I still stand by that we need bumper stickers that say, my power hike is faster than your honor student.
I agree.
Carry on.
All right. How many geocaches did everybody get?
10, and just 10. Whoa, I whipped myself. Just 10. That's all I could do. No more.
It was hard.
Also, don't say just 10. I got 13, and I felt like I was the biggest overachiever that there was. Like, I felt like I was trying to get every geocache that I could and ended up with 13.
I got 14, but only because I have a very addictive, I'm like the mouse in the maze that has to press the button over and over again to get the cheese. I was like, oh, piece of candy. Like I was like thriving on the feeling of finding things, like that dopamine rush that you get like in any kind of orienteering race. And I was just like, I must find the treasures. And I could not stop myself. I was possessed.
Did you also have previous?
Sorry, did you see that someone got like 18 or something on the list? At one point, I was like, wow, 18. High five.
Jesus.
I'm sure somebody got like 30 by the time it was all said and done. Like, I was very surprised, and I'll talk more about it when we get to the stage, but I took 2 separate stages to focus that were guided completely on where geocaches were, and still only ended up with 13. And it took me, I think on average, I ended up doing, and Lauren, I think you ended up doing about the same at Great Seal. It was like, it took me like 3 hours to do. It was like, at my fastest and pushing it pretty much as I could do like 2 geocaches an hour. And
me too.
That was pretty maxed out. And that was even being lucky on some finds, which I was surprised by that. And again, really helpful to have the context, Laura, because you said that you spent like 40 minutes for looking for your first geocache or something like that.
Stupid.
And I went back and forth between feeling like I'm a geocaching goddess, and then also being like, I don't know how to use my eyes.
Well, it has the little vibration. Did you have that on? So like when you got close, I'd be like, yeah, it's vibrating. And I'm like, okay, now I must look. And I'm looking everywhere. And there's no place to hide a thing. There would be like a pole somewhere. I'm like, and now where do I look? That's the only thing here. I don't know.
I dismantled so much shit because of that. Urban ones, I'm like, I'm just going to take this apart. Hope it doesn't break. That worked out in my favor. I had one, and
really?
The likelihood of you finding this is very slim. But I had one in like a Lowe's parking lot where it was just a lamp post, and there was like a plastic box over the cement structure that holds up the lamp post, and I was like, fuck this. I just picked it up, and underneath was the geocache, and I was like, seriously?
Really? Whoa!
You did that too?
Yeah, I had the same, like not the same one, I'm sure, but same thing as the bottom of the lamppost, and I was like picking it up. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's moving.
Wait, is that the one near the casino?
No, it's in Lewis Center.
Dismantle it. When in doubt, dismantle it.
Yes.
So this is funny. This makes me feel better. So I did a geocache that was closer to our house that was a light post, and it turns out that it was like a fake wall plate that was stuck on the pole. So like think of like a flat wall plate, like that would cover an electrical outlet if there wasn't outlets or there wasn't switches, and they just had magnets stuck on it and stuck on the side. But before I thought to check that, I was thinking it's got to be this base, and I thought that's a crazy person thing to think. And now that you said that, I'm just gonna be like, smash!
Take it apart. Very, very briefly, when I first got into geocaching like 10 years ago, there was one in a cemetery, and I looked for it day after day. I would just go back and look for it, and I was like, it's supposed to be in this giant mausoleum thing that has like an angel on top. And I was like, it's in there. It's in there. And so I just took like one brick out from like underneath the thing, and the whole thing went, Arr! And I was like, ah! Man, it did not topple over, but a very large memoriam item with an angel on it definitely squeaked about an inch to the left, because I was like, there's a geocache in this fucking thing.
So it makes me so nervous because there are so many cemetery geocaches. Like, I totally get that that's the thing to have geocaches in cemeteries. I feel like there is no respectful way to be like digging for stuff. And I'm always like, okay, I don't know where else to look, but except for headstones. Like, I went to one that was like, it is not by headstones. Like, it's in the cemetery, but it's not by headstone. It was like a headstone, a tree, and the geocache was like in the tree that was literally like growing out of the grave that the headstone was part of. And I was like, I would consider this near a headstone. Like, yeah. So, all right, let's get into the stages. Stage 1 was run or trek for 3 hours. And this was meant to be done pretty much on whatever terrain you wanted. And this was different than the bushwhack stage, which was specifically meant to be off trail. So the run trek phase was essentially go on foot somewhere for 3 hours. So, Laura, why don't you take how your stage one went, including like where it fell in the, like if this was earlier in your event or later in the event for you based on your scheduling?
Yes, this was day 2 of my event, like the first real bigger thing I did. And I had to juggle family, and my husband's work was crazy at the time. So I was like, all right, boys, I guess you're coming with mom. So we went to Clear Creek
Cool.
and we walked as slowly as possible. We had lots of bickering and me threatening, and it was loads of fun. So we probably went like almost 6 miles, and it took us 3 hours. So go as slow as possible and barely any mileage, but it took 3 hours, and that's all I needed. So that's what I did.
Did you find geocaches at Clear Creek?
Yes, there was one geocache, and it was the biggest one I found out of all the geocaches, and it was the easiest to find. Like they were like no clues needed. And I probably shouldn't say where it was, but it was in an obvious historical area.
How did the boys like geocaching?
They liked that. They liked when we actually found things, because many times before this, I was like, let's try geocaching. They're like, okay. And then we'd be like, never mind. There's nothing anywhere. Just faking every time. Like we would try 3 or 4 before that, and we never found a thing. So they were excited we found that one. So that was a win.
Yeah, geocaching is fun when you find stuff. But even personally, after I would look for like 2 minutes, I'd be like, I'm over this.
I know.
I have to say though, I think for my run trek stage, I went to Westerville and did like an urban trek because I wanted to be able to get geocaches, like as many geocaches as possible. And again, I still think I think I ended up getting sick, even being in an urban setting and doing it as quickly as I can. And I think I only ended up with like 7 miles, Laura. It was not, and I was also not in a hilly part. So I would be, yeah, I just think that's funny because geocaching just took me so long. And my key word throughout my whole event is wet. I feel like every stage I ended up wet. So like I did the run trek stage and I got poured on, just poured on. So that was my wetness for that stage.
I did my run trek at Sharon Woods. This is why I don't understand like where all your on foot mileage is coming from. Good on you, but I don't know. I don't understand because I did 12 miles and I got 4 geocaches at Sharon Woods, which was just rife with them. They were everywhere. I found some cool ones and some weird ones that smelled like old ladies. I definitely touched poison ivy 19 times in 4 days and would go home and thank God for adventure racing because I scrubbed my body with Zanfel every single day, like probably 2 to 3 times a day.
Birth Bark brought to you by Zanfel.
Yeah,
not really.
I wish.
Could be.
Stuff is like gold.
I double checked my miles. I ended up with 8 miles on my run trek stage.
Still though, damn.
Yeah.
Also, I found my favorite ever geocache on this stage. It was awesome. It was called like Mama Spider or something like that, and it was part of a series. This was the only one that I got of the series, and not like a multi-part geocache, but like they had placed different geocaches. So this one was this giant like Halloween decoration spider up in a tree that you lowered with a rope like a flagpole, and the geocache was in the spider, and then you would put it back up. It like exploded my brain. Like it was just, Lauren, you said this before, it was like, this is what you imagine the world is like when you're a kid, that there are like spiders and things hiding in trees that you lower down and there are treasures inside. And I was just like, and of course it's in one of those spots, and I'm not going to say the exact location, but it's in a spot where it's like, you know, it's off trail, it's in the woods, but it's in a heavily trafficked area. So it's like, this has just been here this whole time and no one knows it's here except for me. Now I know that there is a spider up in this tree. And it was probably, let me think about this. It was probably 30, 40 feet. And like, it was this giant tree that the spider was like I could barely see it from the ground. It was awesome.
That's a genius rigging for a geocache. Oh, I love that.
Awesome.
If they were all only that fun, that's how it should be in an adventure race.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking that.
Great.
All right. Stage 2, bushwhack, 3 hours. This one, dear listeners, it was not just the name of the stage and an hour requirement. So some of the stages required like, hey, you got to go to a bridge, or you need to go to ruins, or you need to make sure you at least go by a body of water. Like, I really think Rootstock Racing was insanely clever in figuring out a way to make this specific enough that it wasn't like, it made it feel more real, because it wasn't just, oh, you can pretty much do whatever you want and it counts. You still had to meet some criteria. So for the bushwhack stage, it was supposed to be at least, was it 70 or 75% off trail, which is significant. Like, that's a lot of bushwhacking. So, Lauren, how was your bushwhack stage?
It was amazing. I felt ridiculous. This is the time that my phone fell into sand mud and almost got eaten by it. I was very hot and very sweaty, and my hair tie broke, and I had a very good time. And it was my goal to just barreling through just tremendous brush as fast as I could, like fully aware that I will fall down eventually, but just like basically falling forward through space as hard as I could to like tear through bramble. That was kind of the flavor of mine. It was reckless.
And how many geocaches did you get during
4
during your bushwhack?
At least 4, maybe 5. It was Great Seal, where the weird, creepy banana is. I don't know if you guys know, but there's a series of fruit caches that have just rotten fruit in them.
Ah!
I can't get over that one. So I also did my bushwhack at Great Seal, and one of the geocaches, it's the Fruit of the Month Club, and it's a baggie with what Lauren says is a foam banana in it, but it might as well be a real banana because it's black and it's squishy. It looks like someone just placed an actual banana in a Ziploc baggie. And it also, I think, was not where it's supposed to be where I found it. So it just looked like somebody stole a banana that was left there. I was like, is this it? And luckily, the geocaching app, like I saw that other people had found the same banana as the geocache. So it's like,
yeah, all the comments are like, please replace banana. Please replace banana. But it's not. I touched it and it was firm to the touch.
Ew.
Unless, I don't know. Maybe it really, I don't know. It looks as disgusting. I don't know. I actually don't know. It was shocking.
So I did the bushwhack at Great Seal. I ended up doing like 5 hours instead of 3 hours because I just decided that I wanted to bushwhack out and do geocaches for 3 hours rather than like go out for 2 hours and then spend an hour getting back. So I was just out there for forever, and it was a good time. It was hard. Also, everything is green and in bloom right now. So like trying to get through anywhere. Luckily, the vegetation at Great Seal is not the worst. Like it is in places, but like, as soon as you get like out of the really low lying areas, it's not bad at all. So it was pretty nice. But it was a hard day. And after I did that stage, which was on my 3rd of 4 days, I went to Panera Bread afterwards and made everything worth it because I was like scarfing down so much food from Panera after bushwhacking for that long that I was like yelping to myself in the car as I was shoving sandwiches in my face. I was like, oh, I can't get so if I got nothing else from this lockdown, which I did get lots of other stuff, the experience alone of scarfing down Panera in a parking lot and almost crying because it tasted so good because I was so hungry, worth it. That alone, worth it.
Excellent. All right. You want me to go? Am I next? Okay. So I did mine on the end of the third day. So my Saturday, the third day, was a long day, and I put it at the end. And then didn't remember that I chose High Banks, and I didn't remember that it was closing. So I had a time frame. I had to get out of the park, actually. So
that's right.
Which was a little bit tricky. So I had to do some bushwhacking through the cemetery near me, not on trail, on the way back home to just get my time in. So that was silly. So I didn't plan well. I did get like 1 or 2 geocaches, I think, there. And I went into it with like a weird plan. This was where I was dumb. So I thought, oh, I'll do, Chris Geekus did an O course for me there, and I'll take that and I will do the O course at High Banks. So I was going to do the O course, and then I started doing it and realized it wasn't taking me anywhere where I needed to go. So I bagged it, and then I just started walking through High Banks randomly and just tried to get to the things until I had to leave the park and then walk home. I walked everything. I was just like, okay, 3 hours. I'll walk around the cemetery and look at things for a while, and then I came home.
I walked my bushwhack. There's no way I could have done anything else.
No, I would walk into this one.
Did anybody give you a weird eye at High Banks? Like, hey, lady, the trail's right here. It's right here.
Actually, no. I thought I would see that. I mean, I came scurrying out of some bushes a couple times, like people like looking at me. But no one said anything. That was good.
I also had that similar experience on other stages of being like, of people relaxing and having a nice normal time in the summer. And I'm like, come like sweating and steaming and covered in like bugs and dirt and being like, got it, okay. And then just like diving back into the woods like, you never saw me.
Totally.
I only got one. I got one shittiness from one person, and I get it. Like, if you're a good steward of the trail, I can understand people being like, use the trail. Because I was bushwhacking up the switchbacks of a very huge climb at Great Seal, just straight up the middle. And there was a couple that were obviously like serious hiker enthusiasts, and they were coming down, and he was like, the trail is here. And I was like, but I felt like being puppeteered by unseen hands, and I was like, I'm sorry, I have to do this.
I can't help it.
The lockdown is making me do it. There's nothing I could do. I had to keep going straight up.
Good. All right. Bushwhack, I think, not the most difficult, but it was, I would say, the second most difficult stage for me was the bushwhack, I think. Stage 3, road bike ride, 4 hours. I'll actually start on this one. So the road ride was my first stage in my adventure race, and I got to do it with Lauren, that was our third time seeing each other, doing anything together over quarantine.
One
so
of those
the last
doesn't
3-4
count.
months.
Walking in my front yard for 10 minutes from 10 feet apart does not
I wasn't
count.
counting that.
Damn.
So maybe the second. So
the second time we saw each other for my birthday, quarantine safe style, and the bike ride. So yes.
And the bike ride, yes. So like this was just ended up being like the most fun way to kick off lockdown for me. So we were actually going to record a podcast, and I think I texted Lauren like 10 minutes before we were supposed to record, and I was like, hey, instead of recording a podcast, do you want to go do my 4-hour bike ride with me for the lockdown instead? Like, let's just go and do that and make that happen. And to Lauren's credit, and my credit too, we got we got ourselves together because I was also not prepared to go do it. We got ourselves together and out the door from text until meeting up with each other, 30 minutes, like from text to meeting up with each other. And the drive is like 16 minutes of that. Like, so it was like, it was so satisfying and just really like off the cuff to get out the door and start it. It made it perfect. And also we finished at like 9:40 or something like that. And I was like, I'm counting that as my after sunset finish activity. Like, there's my night stage. I knocked it all out. So we just did a multi-purpose trail and just yammered the whole time. It was great. It was a great way to do my first stage of the event.
My husband gave me a little bit of hairy eyeball because I had just got back from a run. And I was like, okay, podcast time. And I was like, not podcast time. And I'm like pulling up this, like the strap, like the suspenders of my chamois. And I'm like, okay. I'm like putting like, chamois butter on, and like my helmet is like a yarmulke, and I'm like, okay, I'm leaving. I have to go. And he's like, what the fuck?
Wasn't that also like, didn't it just happen to be on a day where it was like your fourth workout of the day or something? Because you did like yoga and strength and a run.
It was my fourth workout. Wow. I was like, I'm doing it.
You're a good friend. Hey, I haven't seen you in months. You want to come do this bike ride with me right now? Let's go.
Wild horses could not keep me away. Okay, Laura's turn.
Let's see. This was my road ride. Was my beginning of my third day, the long day I did. And let's see. This one, my plan was all to get. We had to get all these, find all these things on the road ride, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was like two or three bridges, a stone wall, ruins. What was the other thing that was like a ruin? An abandoned building. Yeah, there's quite a list.
So I made out my route, and then this was my most fun one because I like to find the things, and I was like, these things I know are there. So I liked doing that, and I also made it, the geocaches go along. So this is the one where I tried to get the most. I think I got like 6 or 7 geocaches on this one, and it took forever, but I still think it was perfect weather. I lucked out on weather, and I just loved this stage. So I don't know. I think that's where I went like 34 miles, I think, because we had talked about that. But
that's dope. Was fun. That's really good. And especially like, so on my road ride, I only got the features. We did one geocache just kind of out of complete happenstance. I can't imagine getting all the features and doing 6 geocaches and getting anywhere close to 35 miles on a bike. That's awesome.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was easy riding. It was fun. I was like ready to roll. And then later I got a little tired.
My bike ride was nothing to write home about. I had an okay time. I got a lot of geocaches. It was urban and dangerous on the roads, but it was fun. Nothing good.
Was that earlier? Was your road ride earlier or later in your stuff?
I think that was my second morning. Yep. That was my first real day of actual like out there stuff, because Friday night was my weirder home things.
Got it. We'll get there.
That's it for me.
Stage 4 was mountain bike for 3 hours, and well-graded dirt roads did not count. Again, very specific. So they did a really good job of closing any loopholes. So even if you wanted to be schmarmy and do the easiest way, there was just not very many loopholes to make that happen. So yeah, mountain bike ride, 3 hours. Laura, how was your ride?
My ride was excellent. Actually, I wanted to go to Alum Creek, but it had rained recently, so it was closed. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to drive to Mohican in the middle of the day. Nothing will be open around here. So I was trying to like figure out a plan. Ended up going to Chestnut. It was open. So I just did the loops. So for 3 hours, I definitely stopped. I took some breaks.
You made it 3 loops?
I don't know how many loops. I did like definitely 2 and then some other stuff. I was getting bored. I hate looping. So I was like, I'll just ride over here and do the berm things. And So I did the grassy.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
I considered doing Chestnut, and I was like, I don't think my heart can take it. Either from effort or fear, I'm not going to be able to do that for 3 hours at Chestnut is it's a long time. Like
it was.
That's brutal.
That's what killed me before the bushwhack. I was like, okay, I'm done. Oh no, wait, 3 more hours of walking.
Lauren.
Yeah, me.
Yeah,
I'm talking about it. I went to Mohican because Chestnut and both Elm Creeks, P1, P2 and Chestnut were closed. And I was like, son of a bitch. I went to Mohican and I was like, you got this, girl. You're a real tough, bad bitch. You're going to be fine. And I got to the very first climb and I was like, holy moly, this is fucked. I went so slow.
I feel like, so for non-Ohio people, so Chestnut that Laura did for her mountain bike stage is a mountain bike designed course. Like, they are very particular and keep it only to mountain bikers. So like it is designed slow and obstacles with ramps and log overs and stuff for mountain bikers. Mohican is a 22 mile mountain bike loop at Mohican State Park, just northeast of Columbus, and it has pretty steady big climbs on it, in addition to several rock gardens. And like, I've never ridden my mountain bike there because I like my pants to be free of poop. So I feel like I have to set the stage for people who don't know the locales that we're talking about. You guys both went and rode like the real reels when it comes to mountain bike. Like, that's the thing that I can maybe get myself geared up to do for an hour, and when I'm done, all my adrenaline is gone and my butt has been pounded into oblivion. So I just have to say, like, you guys are badasses. So continue, Lauren, with Mohican and how that went.
At some point, I had blown it out so hard that I was just like, the thing is, you cannot calm yourself down. Like, if you go any slower, you'll just fall over, or you'll not be able to get the bike up the hill. So you can't, like, you basically have to redlining is your only choice. So after, I think, I don't know, maybe 10 miles, I was just like, I'm going to go ride the road a little bit to get my heart rate down, because I like immediately looked up the app as soon as I had service, and I was like, what percentage of this has to be on trail? I feel like I'm going to die. I did a good hard thing, but I was a little bit of a baby about it because I was just so sick of redlining. Like, I think calories per minute wise for the whole event, I tore through some calories in this particular segment.
Also, what was the temperature when you went mountain biking?
Hot. It was like 80 with sun.
You both had some elements to deal with, like hot, wet. Like,
this is what happens when you do it in June.
Yeah.
You did it at the right time, Laura. Like, I should have just ripped the Band-Aid off and done it earlier because, you know what they say about orienteering and adventure racing? Best to do it in the middle of the summer when everything is grown in and the weather sucks.
For sure.
Lauren, how many miles did you end up on your mountain bike section?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm looking now. That would have been, well, golly. Oh my God, this is why it was so hard. I did my 3-hour run I did that morning, and then I went to
boy.
And I ended up with 20 miles on the mountain bike.
I mean,
holy shit. Holy shit. I ran, no wonder I was so cooked. I thought it was my first activity of the day, and I had already run 12 miles, so no.
You crushed it.
Also, that means you must have gone, like, truly peak heat of the day. Like, there's no way you made it out to Mohican earlier than, like, 2.
No. That's factual.
That makes my skin hot.
I know. It was hard. It was really hard.
I went and did, so my mountain bike stage was actually
I just want to show you, this is what I know, this is what I felt like after that day, which I sent to Annie. It's mascara around my face, and I'm just eating plantain chips and chocolate, and I'm completely horizontal.
You had a lot of heroin chic looks during your event.
I was not. I did not look great.
It's good. Your outsides match how you felt on the inside. It's nice when that happens.
True. That's true.
So I did mountain bike as my very last stage, which was great because I got to do it and then have it be like celebratory afterwards. So mountain bike, I actually did it on Monday morning. So I started Thursday night on my bike ride with Lauren, finished Monday morning doing my mountain bike loop. I went and did it at John Bryan, which to my credit is also a mountain bike trail, but it has like 800 feet. No, not even that. It probably has like 400 feet of elevation change, not even game. Like it's very much like the entry level to mountain bike because I was like 3 hours is a long time to be doing like really hard mountain biking. And I got to do this stage with my family. So Arbor, Andy, and I went and did a loop at John Bryan, which is about 12 miles. It took us 2.5 hours to do the 12 miles all together. But like Arbor got to go through the water crossings and like the trail conditions were great. The trail was super dry. So that was really fun. So I did the 12 miles in like 2.5 hours with all three of us. And then I went back out and did 8 miles, like as hard and as fast as I could. I think it ended up being a total of maybe like 3.5 hours, 3 hours, something like that. So I did 20 miles on the easiest, flattest mountain bike course I could find, while you did 20 miles at Mohican, which is not flat. But it was, I think, I want to say it was 90 degrees out, 91 degrees out.
Oh,
it was very toasty.
Your roll, so to speak. Yeah, that'll slow you the fuck down.
Yeah, so I got my thing that made me wet on this stage was my own sweat. I was just pouring sweat, just a sweat soppy mess. But it was so much fun. And just as a side note, Andy and Arbor have gone back and done the loop at John Bryan no less than 3 times in the last week. So it was worth it.
They went 3 times in 1 week?
Yeah, this last week, the week that we're finishing up right now, they went 3 times this week. Wow. Because Arbor keeps asking to go do the mountain bike loop. So if anybody is looking for like an entry-level mountain bike trail, I cannot recommend the mountain bike loop at John Bryan near Yellow Springs, Ohio, enough. It was great. Stage 5. Oh, you little stage 5. Stage 5 was multi-sport. This was 5 hours. Lauren, your face is how I feel. Laura, I'm curious to see if you felt the same way. So the multi-sport stage is what made me feel like a pile of hot garbage in a really great and terrible way. So you needed to do more than one sport, obviously. But I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this. You couldn't just do loops from a central hub. So you needed to not have like one place that you were coming back to. You needed to so for example, they said, I think of their examples, they were like trek and then do a bike loop off of your trek portion and then trek back. So you couldn't just like loop out from your car, or it was like, you can't just do loops from your home essentially. So they did make it so that you needed to go out a bit. This one cooked my noodle. Laura, I don't know that I know offhand what your multi-sport stage was, so let's hear all about it. And did you feel like a pile of hot garbage?
I was like a half-heaping pile of garbage because I did this as my last day. So it was the only thing I was doing that day. Part of my problem was that I stayed up a little too late drinking the night before, which was a bad choice. Why would I do that?
That's not part of the race.
So, all right. So I started out a little bit later than I wanted to, a little bit crispy anyway. And then I took the old course that, thank you again to Chris Geekus for developing this course from Northline Navigation. He set up a course that took us around all of Alum Creek. So it was awesome. There are 19 checkpoints. And am I frozen again? Shoot.
Keep talking. You're good. Your video's frozen, but your audio's good.
All right, good. So went around the whole lake. There were 19 checkpoints. And so I was like, I want to do the whole thing. I'm going to stage my bike. So I did like a little like bike drop right there. I don't know if you could see that.
Yeah. Cool.
And so I marked out the course like ahead of time. So it felt like an adventure race because I was like, ooh, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here. This will be on bike. This will be on foot. This will be on bike. I think I transitioned like 5 times. So staged my bike, went on my run, and just started getting checkpoints as an old course. And then, I left out, I think there were 19. I think I left out 5 of them. And I actually really enjoyed this day too. So for me, it was like, I was pretty spent when I was done. I mean, it was also May, so I wasn't crawling through the depth of all the briars. And, there were a couple moments where I was like cursing because like my hat was caught on a branch. I actually had to take my pack off to like get out of the briars. I was like, okay, I'm completely stuck. So that happened more than once. But yeah, it was just totally fun to like feel like it was a real adventure race out there looking for orienteering checkpoints. And then I think I got like 1 geocache because I needed 1 more while I was there.
That's awesome. And you said that was your day 2?
That was my last day, my day 4.
That was your last day. Got it. And you had, so not only were you drinking the night before, didn't you say your day 3 was really long? Like, didn't you do a lot of stages on day 3? So how much like activity time did you have on day 3?
Oh, that was 4, 5, 10 hours.
Holy crap.
That's beefy. That's a long
activity.
Fucking day.
Yeah, it wasn't a transition time. I started at like 7:30 in the morning, and I wasn't done. I didn't get back home until like 8:30, I think, because the park had closed, and so I had to come home a little after that. So yeah.
That's amazing. And then you did your multi-sport the day after that.
Yeah. That was so...
That's intense, dude.
That's where you feel like it's the real...
That's the real racing
For
feeling.
sure. Do you know how many miles you had on your multi-sport stage total?
I should have added that up. I actually don't know because I did it all in chunks on Strava. I'd have to go back and look at that. I can get back to you with that. But
did you go all the way from, so I know the orienteering course starts at the marina at Alum Creek and makes it all the way back around to the marina. Did you do the full loop marina all the way around?
I did. Yeah. It was so fun to do that too. And then like the mountain bike courses, the only thing that was tricky was going in the reverse direction on a mountain bike course. Did you do that?
Uh-huh. I did, because I was thinking that so you go reverse on which one, P2 or P1? You went reverse on P1, right?
Yep. No,
so
I went reverse on P2. Sorry. And then I decided not to do it on P1.
So I went the correct direction on P2. Like, I just kept going. And then when I got to P1, I was like, these make much more sense to do in reverse. So, and I was so pooped by then, I essentially just walked my bike the whole time, because anytime I would try and go up a hill on the course, I was just like, ugh. But that's so cool that you did the full loop. So I also did my stage 5 multi-sport at Alum, doing the same orienteering course that Laura did. So I'm going to like triple shout out Chris Geekus with the Northline Navigation. It was so much fun and so hard, and like a really great mix of, for anybody that's in this area and who's interested, like, would highly encourage you to do it. Like, you had a full orienteering map with 19 checkpoints on it. You're just using a map and compass to go around. You have an app on your phone that actually tells you when you get to the checkpoint. So you aren't looking for a physical checkpoint, but it feels just as satisfying. And by the end of the day, there was nothing sweeter than the sound of my phone singing the chirpy little song that I had found at Checkpoint. It was like, and I was like, I'm the champion of the world. And again, this is when I would come barreling out of the woods and popping up next to somebody in a hammock. And then my phone would like chirp at me. And then I would just Sasquatch back into the woods. I have to imagine they were like, I don't understand anything of what just happened. But I did. So I started at the marina, started on foot, and then picked up my bike at the ranger station, which it looks like you did pretty much the same thing, Laura, without knowing that you did that, which is really funny, and continued in a clockwise direction around Alum Creek Lake or whatever the hell it's called. And it was really funny because the parts that I thought would be easy weren't. Anytime the checkpoints were a glorious mixture of checkpoints that were like right next to the trail, but also checkpoints that were like buried in places. So there was quite a few that you could just kind of click off as you were going along the trail. But as soon as the checkpoints were off trail at all, the vegetation was so bad. Like, Lauren, you still saw the scratches on me last weekend, a week after I'd done the thing. Like, I just had scratches all over me. I have like splinters that are growing out of my shoulders, like that are just, like starting to come out. And like, I had points where I was on my hands and knees because the vegetation was so overgrown that it was just one of those things where you're like, I can only go lower. I can only go lower. I can only go lower. Like, I was just like, and part of my brain would be like, just as it does in a real orienteering event or adventure race event, your brain starts to tell you, like, there's no way that this exists. I'd be like, oh, well, Geekus hasn't been out here. Like, this probably isn't even right. Like, my app is probably messed up. And then I'd be like, no, it's right. The checkpoint is pretty much always there. It's you that's doing things wrong. But it was funny. There was one place where there was a road intersection, and I was like, oh, this will be great. This is a part that I should be able to breeze through. And they were doing construction. Like, the intersection of Africa and Cheshire is a giant hole. It's just one big giant hole. So I rode my bike across Cheshire, across Elm Lake, and just like the first set of construction crew people let me go by, but they were like, the second group's not because it's a giant hole. So I was like, okay. So I just stopped and like threw my bike over the railing over the side of the road and just like bushwhacked around the giant hole. But it took me at least an extra like 20 minutes just to put like using my bike like a ramrod to get through greenery. But yeah, so I continued along. I think I ended up, I did all the checkpoints in order, and including the off-trail ones, ended up with 14 out of 19, I think. So I think you and I ended up with the same number that we got, but probably the different ones. And I got towards the end, and I really wanted to clear the course, and I would have if I had extra time, but I had planned to do my non-bike or foot stage, which I was going to do 2 hours on paddle. So I needed to be done by no later and back at the marina by 6:45 in order to be able to take 2 hours to do my boat. But this stage for me was by far the most memorable. And in addition to the giant hole in the road, there was also a checkpoint that on the map was like a hill area or like a mound. And because of the water level, it was an island. So I'm just like standing on the shore, looking at an island, and I'm like, is that it? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's it. And I had bushwhacked so hard to get back there. I was like, there's no fucking way I'm not wading my ass out. I was like, I can swim. I will swim across that island. I need my phone to chirp at me and to know that I got it, even though it doesn't matter at all. So I waded up to my thighs, out to the island where the checkpoint was, and then waded back. I was like, it was terrible and wonderful. But yeah, I ended up finishing up on the far side of the dam, and Andy came and picked me up, and we drove back to the marina to get the kayaks and do the next stage. But I was cooked after this stage, and this is only my second day. Like, that's what I started on my second morning, was the multi-stage.
Can you imagine doing that course as it was intended, all on foot? I was like, huh?
No.
That's how he initially made it for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I can use a bike right now.
Oh, because it would have been like twice as long.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, I actually think I could have my stats on my total mileage for stage. And again, I didn't go all the way around. So the exclusively on foot portion, I did 2.8 miles. And then I'm calling it the mountain bike portion, even though it was like bike foot, was 20 miles. And I didn't go all the way around. So Laura, I'm sure that you ended up doing at least 25 miles.
Probably. I should look at that. I don't know. Probably.
It is very stats focused, so you'll have to come with numbers next time.
Yes, I didn't think about those.
Well, and it was really weird, like, because honestly, like in a perfect world, I was like, oh man, I would really love to have the stats of like how much I did on foot, because Laura, like you really did ended up doing like foot bike. Like I would have to stash my bike places and then circle back after I got the checkpoint to get it. Like there was no way to continue moving forward the whole time. Sometimes you had to double back, which I was like, come on, bike, just appear back to me.
That would have been amazing.
So, yeah. Lauren, your multi-sport.
Whew, that was a hard day. You said Lauren, right?
I did.
Yeah, that was a hard day. I went to Denison and I did a road bike and then I did a trail loop and then another road bike and I got brutally lost on my trail run. I just figured I will go to all these trails. There's only a certain number of them and I'll just keep doing them until I'm done because it's altogether a pretty short course. It turns out if you go out to those little bubbles, you can actually go to other bubbles that are not on any maps at all. And I basically went like, oh, this is a loop, that's cool. This is a loop, that's cool. And then I broke off the map. And then I was very lost. My last chunk, I was crispy. And I was also like, I got that sort of like everybody's amazing kind of like there's the oatmeal comics that like once you do something very hard, like athletically, that you're just like, we're just champions. And that lady who's running is really a champion and I am too. And those little kids on bikes are little champions too. Like everything becomes really important. That's how I felt at the end of that.
And I got to see you briefly. We crossed paths on the multi-use path, and like that was another hot day. Like
yes. It was very hot. It was very hot. I was crispy, but I had fun.
So multi-sport was the crispy stage. And the next two were the shorter ones. So, but probably the more, I shouldn't say more novel, just differently novel. Stage 6 was non-bike or non-foot, 2 hours. And this was up to interpretation, as long as it wasn't bike or foot. I did my 2 hours paddle, although to be fair, I was in a canoe with Andy and Arbor after doing I actually think I ended up doing 6.5 hours on the multi-sport. So while I say my stage was paddling, I was actually sitting in a boat eating pizza while Andy puttered me around.
There is no better way to do that. That's the best way to do that.
Seems correct. Like you should.
Yes. Laura, this is a real multi-sport. What was your non-bike, non-foot activities?
I came up with everything possible. I was like, what are things I want to do? And I'm going to just like try them all. So it was raining. So I was rollerblading with rollerblades that I got in 2002. They were definitely
I love that.
Bitchin'.
My son's been using them during quarantine so much. I had to duct tape them onto my foot around one spot because there was no more laces. So I was like,
I didn't know that rollerblading could be so hardcore.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think I rollerbladed into school because then I was like, oh, rollerblading sucks when your feet have grown and your toes are hitting the ends of the rollerblades and the roads are bumpy. And I'm like, I just went to the school and did loops in the parking lot for like 4.5 miles. And then came back and then what did I do? I did yoga. I put together part of a puzzle to get ready to do it, which we never did. I was like, come on, kids, do puzzles now. And then we danced a little bit. I can't wait. You talked about yours. And then what else did I do? I did some juggling. I thought, well, I haven't juggled in a while. And then I did
nice.
Tennis.
Didn't know that was one of your skills. That's sweet.
Yeah, not really good. But then I did some like tennis drills where I was like bouncing the ball like I used to do when I played tennis, and like trying to flip the racket and bounce the ball and then hit the edge of the racket, like just tricks. So I did that for however long it was, 2 hours. Yoga.
I really feel like there should have been a video montage of you doing all these activities, because it sounds like a montage from an 80s movie.
Yeah, like the Home Alone, like running around the house, like doing some yoga, doing some of this, popping popcorn.
So basically, I actually did take some video, but I didn't post it because it's too
extra content needed.
All right.
Lauren, you're stage 6.
My stage 6 was a disco dance party in silence in my basement.
I loved
like a Buddhist thing. It was very Buddhist. It wasn't in silence for me, but it was in silence for everyone else because Facebook booted me off for copyright infringement. But I had some weird feedback because almost my entire workforce watched it.
Oh, that was nice of them.
Didn't you see your neighbors?
And my neighbors.
Didn't you see your neighbors then?
And my neighbors. It was not, I just thought like, you know, my 2 of my friends and my dad's weird uncle would be like, good job, Lauren. But it was like half of my workforce. And they were like, what are you doing?
I stayed on Instagram for a long, long time watching it, and I really loved people popping in without context and just being like, what's happening and why are you doing this? Like, how do you easily like have it up front and center? Like, I'm doing this for an adventure race because that makes more sense.
No, it doesn't. But I feel like people have come to expect this kind of behavior from me. And that makes me feel good.
It was really good.
I loved it.
I don't know if you saved it on Instagram or anything, but I just,
it's there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. We'll have to find some good screen caps. All right. Final stage 7 was strength for 1 hour, upper body core work only, which I don't know about you guys, but my legs are the only part of me that actually works. So this was a challenge for me.
My arms don't work. Yeah. Sorry,
Laura, what did you do? Yeah, go for it.
So that was my sunset to sunrise one. So I just picked an hour. It was easy. Kids were home. I could be home, and just went to the basement. My husband joined me, and we just did like a Peloton core thing. And then we had some weights and just did some arm stuff for an hour. Pretty simple.
That's awesome.
Basic. Yeah, it was fun.
Did you do yours earlier or later in your race?
Oh, that was my very first stage. I started with the nighttime.
Me too.
Although, Lauren, I took your advice and did not do strength till the end because you said that you had a little bit of soreness from doing strength, and I was like, you know what? I haven't used my upper body for anything in a really long time. I'm going to do this last because otherwise I may be incapacitated for the rest of my
pulling
race.
up on the mountain bike handlebars is like, it was not a good way to do it.
So I did the upper body video that Lauren sent me, which was perfect. The has fit upper body, no weight, which was like some isometric like holds and stuff, which was perfect. I also didn't do much ab stuff because if I did my abs, they would also be incapacitated for several days, which is a great sign, I'm sure. And I also used it as an excuse to do some of my home exercise program, my home exercises, Laura. So I was like, I'm going to do my rehab stuff for credit because it counts if it's for an activity. If it's by itself, no one cares, but this is for a stage of an adventure race.
I'm proud of you.
Well, thanks. Lauren, I'm not sure what did you do? I don't think you did the same video for your strength stage, right? You did. Okay.
Yep, I did the same one. I just did it twice in a row.
That might have been it. It was also kind of inadvertently like 40 push-ups.
It was horrible, and my tries were sad afterwards.
So that's the whole event, stages 1 through 7. It was designed to be 21 hours in length. I calculated mine up. I did nearly 27 hours. So if that's not the sign of inefficiency, I don't know what is. But I had a great time. Like, there have been few things that have made me feel like life is kind of normal, and somehow, and for whatever reason, this made it feel kind of normal, second only to the first Bar Fear Mile we did during quarantine that felt like an actual race. This was the only thing that felt like this. I can kind of forget that life is weird outside of my house right now.
I feel the same way. It was a real reprieve for me from feeling like, I'll just drink a little more wine and then I'll wake up and everything will be fine. Yeah, no, it was really good.
Yeah, I was supposed to do a race early May, and I decided to do this the weekend after I was supposed to do an actual race. So I was very glad to have something kind of fill that void too. It was definitely great.
Yeah, it filled a lot of holes.
Yeah, I ended up doing mine. I ended up getting my holes filled the same weekend that we had rescheduled Sugarloaf Teat Reaper too. So I ended up being at Great Seal the day after Teat Reaper would have been. So it felt very like commemorative in that way. But yeah, I'll say again, thanks to Rootstock Racing. And I shit you not, like, because I think things are going to continue this way for a little bit longer still. I'm pretty close to just going to do it again. Like I'm pretty sure that I will just do it again.
I'm right on the edge of doing it again because I need some kind of pain to hold me like a baby, and that's what this race did for me. Yes, I'm right on the edge.
And it's also funny to me because while this made me feel like life was the most normal, this was also the thing that felt the most like, this is pointless. There's no reason to be doing this. Like, going by people in kayaks and hammocks and being like, I'm just traveling through the woods in my biking shoes, hiking.
Yeah. Oh, it's a little bit of meaninglessness. It's good.
Yeah. So maybe the three of us should do it as a team, and we'll just do another recap episode of our second lockdown attempt, because what else is there to do?
Nothing.
I love it.
But I want to say thanks to our special guests. Thank you for coming on, Lauren. We can finally put a name, a face to the name for listeners who are watching on YouTube. And thanks to Rootstock Racing, who we're all wearing our shirts in the video, and our logo is on the back.
Oh yeah, which is dope.
Hold on, maybe I can get it.
I can't reach anything. But it definitely says, there you go. Wow. Look at that arm flexibility.
This is like Birth Barf is legit because we're on the back of a race shirt now.
This is the highest tier. Even
we did it.
Annie's daughter Arbor was like, is it on all of the shirts? Like, which is adorable. And we were like, yeah, it's on all of the shirts. Like, we didn't just get Birth Barf on ours. Everyone has to look at our logo, which is amazing.
Oh, I love it. So thank you, Rootstock Racing, for including us and just providing an opportunity for a really fun event. They even had door prizes and shirts and everything. So just do it again, Rootstock. Just redo it again. That's fine. Yeah. But until next time,
we are
Burp.